Welcome to Women in Business, real conversations with real women, founders, creators, leaders, and risk takers. They're sharing their stories behind their success, how they built it, how they showed up, and what it really takes to do it all. Rachel Kelly's path to the Cornerstone Boutique was built long before the doors ever opened. With over 24 years in retail experience and 14 as a small business owner, she saw firsthand that most women weren't struggling with style. They were struggling with understanding their bodies and finding clothes that truly fit and flatter them. Through personalized styling services, Rachel works one-on-one with women to help them refine their style, understand their body shape, and choose silhouettes that bring confidence and ease to getting dressed. Her approach goes beyond the trends, focusing on education, fit, and helping women feel like themselves again. She has expanded that mission beyond the boutique through her styling content and interview-based YouTube channel, where she shares practical advice and real conversations with women in business. This is her success story.
Tell us about childhood, Rachel.
Well, I grew up in North Alabama, and I was really lucky that I had a very creative mother. My mother, she loved arts, she loved to sew, she kind of dabbled in a lot of stuff. She had a garden, and she was really into theater. And I think that doing theater at such a young age, starting out with that, like really developed a lot of my creativity. She would take us to thrift stores and buy all these outrageous prom dresses that she would cut off some of them, and those would be my dress-up clothes. She would take a skirt from this dress and a top from that dress, and so she was very heavy into doing the costumes with the theater groups. And then I continued theater and did an improv group through middle school. And I think that was really helpful to help me hone in on some of that creativity. I cared more about sports and extracurricular activities than I really cared about my academics. I was a solid B student, so B's do not get scholarships, in case you're wondering. But I never had a sport that I excelled in to where I got a scholarship from that either. So my parents could not afford to pay full ride for me to attend a nice university, and I had learned that you could work at certain companies that would help with tuition reimbursement. And so right out of high school, I got a job at a bank in Nashville, Tennessee. And so I found myself in Nashville. I attended Nashville State Community College, which was a wonderful education. I was lucky enough to have all my professors taught at Vanderbilt, they taught at Belmont, they taught at these very prestigious schools. And then in the evenings, after I worked at the bank all day, and they would, be doctors at Vanderbilt, they would come and teach at the community college. So that's how I started my education. And then I ended up in Hilton Head, South Carolina. The Gulfstream actually sponsored a Saturday degree completion program, and I was the first graduating class for that. And you had to have a full-time job, and you had to have your first 2 years of college completed, and you went to school on Saturday, and it was just an extended work day. It was 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You got an hour lunch. And so that's where, they had one degree, and it was business management, and I have a double minor in HR and marketing, and I got that through their campus, the University of South Carolina campus at Beaufort. And it was a lovely college experience, and I had wonderful professors there too. It was a wonderful group of people that I was able to really learn from. So that's what brought me to South Carolina.
So tell us about your first business that you opened.
So the first business that I opened on Hilton Head, we had an outdoor mall, and you could rent these outdoor kiosks, and that's what I did. I rented an outdoor kiosk. It was a seasonal kiosk through the season, and boy, was I a baby manager, and I learned so many things. It was really hard learning to manage people. At the bank, I always had the direction of corporate America. There were very standard job descriptions, very standard, this is what you do, this is what you don't do, and coaching. And so with it being my kiosk, and I had a couple of employees, and some of them, it was a developed skill that I really had to develop to encourage and mentor people that were under me. And then I was lucky enough at the end of that seasonal lease there that I was lucky enough to be hired by a really great designer that had a local store, and I was welcomed into a very great management team that I really learned a lot from. I learned so many lessons. This company at the time was breaking retail record after retail record. Every single one of them, they were breaking. And so I was able to come into that company, and they really reinvested a lot of those resources into really incredible training. And I was sent all over to different places to learn from the best, and had this fabulous training. And about a little over a year into that job, my aunt and uncle came to visit my now husband and I, and they were retiring. They had a business here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast that they had started in 1992. It was a very wonderful, successful business, and they had just gotten to the point where they were ready to retire. Their life dream had been to move to Mexico, and they did do that. And so my husband and I, we thought, well, would you be interested, instead of closing your business, possibly selling it to us? And then so they thought about it real quick. It was like a one beer thing. And so next thing you know, we had just bought our first house, and we were packing up, and by that, we spent Christmas in our first house, and by New Year's, we were here on the Gulf Coast.
So you moved here, you opened a business, and you started your very own family. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the family journey was difficult for us. We got married, and we were 29 when we got married, so we were a little bit older than the societal norm, and it was difficult for us to get pregnant. And then we ended up doing it took us 4 years. It took 3 years of fertility treatments. There were a lot of ups and downs, and it was a difficult journey before we got our first child. And then a year later, we had our second child. And so, and this was during COVID. So our business was doing wonderful. We were able to come in with some fresh ideas, and I was, again, lucky enough to have worked for such a wonderful high-end company, so I was able to bring that corporate experience in, and the business was doing great. We still have a wonderful staff to this day, and it's a fabulous business, and we're very grateful for it. And we're grateful for my aunt and uncle, and it just worked out well for their retirement, worked out well for us, and we were doing great. And then so we had this brand new baby and a toddler, 2 under 2.
So how did you come up with the concept of Cornerstone Boutique?
The concept with the Cornerstone, I really wanted it to be a place where we're helping women dress for their body and for all the bodies. That's why we're size inclusive. And the idea for this, it was a development over time. I remember I had a pivotal change in my own thinking, and I had a pivotal change in how I was going to represent myself to myself. And it happened not long after I had our second child. Like I said, they're 22 months apart. So I had one. She had her first birthday, and I was immediately pregnant with the second one. And it was COVID, and so we did a lot of these back porch dates. We would get fully dressed up in a date dress, much like I'm wearing now, and go have a date on the back porch. And it was my husband's date night, and it was so beautiful. He had made this beautiful meal, and it was like late fall, winter, and I had my fur shawl on and my date night dress, and we're on the back porch, and he told me how pretty I looked, and I made some sort of comment about the softness, about not having all this baby weight on me. And he just, like, it just deflated him. And he looked at me and he said, you know, we've been together for a really long time. And I've seen you go through fertility treatments. I've seen you at many different sizes. And I've always thought that you were the most beautiful woman in the room. And he said, it really hurts me when you talk about yourself like that. And we have 2 daughters. Our 2 daughters have a beautiful mother. And then if you talk about yourself like that, that's how they're gonna think. He was so worried, and he was coming to me as my husband that loves me and as the father of little girls. And it really, in that moment, I had thousands of memories of my own mother being so hard on her own body, and years later talking about the having children and the lasting effects of stretch marks and breastfeeding and all of these things that her insecurities. And in that moment I thought about that and how much I still think about those things. And I just remember thinking, I may not can change the way that I feel, but it comes, I can't control what comes in my head, but I can control what comes out my mouth. And I made a decision in that moment that the man that loves me is telling me to examine my behavior, and he means it from a place of love, and that I needed to do that. And in that moment and afterward, I was like, you know what? I've had 2 babies. I've been through fertility treatments. I may never lose this baby weight. And am I going to choose to be negative about it? Or am I going to choose to somehow give myself confidence? How do I do that? And so I started learning how to dress. I started learning how the different shapes work and how different fabrics will lay on different curves, and how your shape is your shape. It doesn't matter if you gain or lose 20 pounds. If you're an apple, you're still an apple, or whatever your shape might be. And so I started kind of gaining that knowledge, and the more knowledge I gained, the more confidence I gained in myself, because I was able to dress my body as it was. And then the psychological stuff started to come later. This body has been there for me. This body is still healthy. This body has birthed 2 babies. And that kind of stuff came later. But in the immediate moment, that's when I started just trying to reframe my own thinking. And this was late fall, early winter. And then by the next summer is when this space came available. And we had this space come available. And again, my husband, he said, you know, I love your artwork. I think that you could he's like, your style is very different. And I think that if you it's such a small space, we're less than 600 square foot here. It's a very small boutique. He said, let's do this boutique, paint some stuff, put it on the walls. You can sell the artwork. You pick out cool shit. And so we, and that's kind of how it started. And I was like, well, you know, we have a baby. And so I would bring her to work with me. I'd strap her to me. And I had her pack and play in the back. And the whole concept behind the Cornerstone was I knew I wasn't alone. I knew I wasn't the only woman that had been through a physical change in the mental rut I was in. And I thought, you know, what if I could just share this knowledge? What if I could just get this knowledge out?
So Rachel, tell us how the experience is different when somebody walks through Cornerstone Boutique's doors.
Well, like I said before, I do have a lot of corporate experience. And something that I tried to do very differently than the corporate world is I'm not coming to my people and trying to, hi, how are you? I hope you're having a good day. Let me show you this to buy. And that's not the experience I personally appreciate. I want someone that's knowledgeable about their products and that can help me pick what's right for me. And so I pride myself on the staff here really knows about every individual product that we sell. Every piece of clothing, they know how it lays on the body. Whether you've even done a style blueprint and we've done your professional measurements and we know your shape, they can generally look at you and talk to you about your lifestyle, about some of the things that you like, the colors that you like, and help you find that great piece of clothing for whatever event that you have going on. And just like simple things like you come in, you're looking for a wedding guest outfit, knowing the time of day, knowing like, okay, this is going to be appropriate for that time of day. This is going to be appropriate for that venue. This dress photographs well. This one looks great in person, but this one really photographs well. And so just having that little bit of knowledge and selling on a knowledge base and not, oh, we bought too many of these, so everybody that walks in your door needs this particular item and we're going to make it fit for them because that's what our company needs. We need this particular product to sell, so everybody that walks in the door, you got to sell them that product. And that is absolutely not my concept. Like, we are trying to match the person with the perfect product that is going to fit them. I wanted to really make sure that I had the sizes available, and that's part of it. We're South Mississippi. We like fried food. The average size here is a large, extra large. And that's not gonna change. I eat salad with fried chicken, and that's my justification because it's fried. And but yeah, so that kind of is how the idea, the seed was planted. And then as it grew, lots of things started changing. I would try one thing and it wouldn't work. I'd try another thing. I have changed these racks out a million times, but that's also the beauty of getting new products. It's the beauty of getting, you know, our new season, which we only have 2 here. But, you know, so it is a really great thing when, and I have it on my little open sandwich board sign out front that we are small. It's open, boutique, small to 3X. And I cannot tell you how many people have come in the building saying, you have my size. You have my size. I can shop here. And the gratefulness of that. And then when I started educating myself more about the different body shapes and then the different face shapes and just really doing that whole deep dive, that's when the concept of our style blueprint came available, because now we offer it as a service. You can book a private shopping experience with us, and the reason we did that is because it takes away the intimidation of coming in somewhere when someone that is not mentally their strongest about the way that they look. And it's not always someone that's just, you know, mentally not there, that is so hard on themselves or they feel so bad about themselves. I can't tell you how many women I have that come in that say, I've worn scrubs for 15 years. I just don't know what to dress. And now I want to look like my authentic self, not my 25-year-old self. I want to look like the 40-year-old woman that I am now with my life experience and my knowledge now, but I am not ready to dress like mama.
Tell us about the hardest part of building and opening your business.
Well, this particular area was struck pretty hard by Hurricane Katrina, and it was 20 years ago, but we still have lasting effects of that. Downtown Biloxi is still not where it was before Katrina. It certainly wasn't where it was in the 80s. It's coming, but the development is not as quickly or as extensive as us stores would like. We are lacking in retail. We have approximately, I think at this point, maybe 8 retail stores, and that's not enough for downtown, and we're really spread out. So even though we have all of these wonderful casinos that bring so much tourism in here, it's hard to try to get the people flowing through downtown. We don't have the walking traffic that you would think a downtown with all of those casinos in walking distance would have. And then we have a lot of offices downtown. There was at one point where the insurance was so high, we're a block from the beach, you could see it. And so the insurance was very high. And then we had Zeta just a few years ago that did some damage. It was no Katrina, but it certainly had some damage. We have a lot of these buildings that have been occupied by more offices. So retail, to me, is the missing puzzle piece that we have down here. Because let me tell you something. People don't go into businesses, hair salons, restaurants, look around and say, oh, just looking around, that's weird. People don't do that. They don't walk into the hair salon and say, just looking at what you got, like that's weird. And so, but in retail keeps people around. And here, like I said before, we only have 2 seasons. It is hot. And so we want people to be able to come in, get some air condition, have a bottle of water, and browse around. If you buy something, wonderful. If we make a connection, way even better. And have that time. We want you to have a wonderful cup of coffee or a wonderful biscuit here at the greenhouse, and then by the time you get a block over to the brew paddle, you're ready for lunch. But that's a block, and right now between the two of us, there's only one other retail business. And so that's to me, that is the missing piece. Now, there's also the obvious hurdles. There's the obvious hurdle of the larger online shopping that the price is different. I can't, they're not paying for brick and mortars. They have a warehouse that they're paying for. But where I try to combat that is I have the customer service. I know how to match you to the perfect outfit. I know how to help you style. I will sit here and tell you this color's better on you than that color. This dress isn't going to photograph well for that event that you're going to, whereas this one will. And just kind of like give guidance on that. So I try to combat that with the customer service and the shopping experience, the experience of going, touching the garment, trying on the garment, not committing to it, not having to do a mail-in return. So that has been my biggest hurdle is we do just right now, we're still a downtown in progress. And so we just don't quite have the walking traffic that I would like to see us have and that I know that we have the potential to have. And I'm hoping that as we have more vacancies, we will have more retail, and that will help with that because we have wonderful restaurants. We've got some wonderful salons down here. We've got some great nightlife. We really do. But what we're missing, in my opinion, is more retail.
With that being said, tell us a little bit about, or if there was a time that you thought, I just don't know if I can do this.
So we had a devastating blow to the businesses around here. We had some development get pulled. We had some development that has taken a lot longer. They've had some hurdles that they're trying to get over. So a building that has a ton of business space below that has just been taking longer than it should have. And then again with Zeta hurt them too. And then we've also had some like our Sanger Theater is almost done, and it's been almost done. So that's like such a great venue to bring more people down a developer that's done some wonderful stuff had pulled out a great project. It was really, you know, a bubble popped. And for a minute there in this building, we have 3 other people of small businesses, and we were very worried about our future, that we were so hopeful about this wonderful development. And the oddest, most unlikely source came up on my feed, and it was this little reel of a football star talking about taking opportunity. And I don't even know how this guy got on my algorithm, because I haven't watched a football game in 20 years. But there he was, and he was talking about taking opportunity, and it was just this little 10-second clip of a speech that he had done. And I was like, you know what? Here I am feeling deflated, because this wonderful development got pulled, and this other development's taking a long time, and I was just feeling so sad about that, and powerless over, you know, these weren't my developments. And so what can I do as this little tiny store at the corner over here? And it got me thinking, and I was like, well, let me make some opportunity. And so, and I thought, well, we just got the Mardi Gras Amtrak growing, and that train station is 2 blocks that way. And so I called our wonderful Main Street. They are a nonprofit organization that helps developing downtowns in the downtown district, the historic district. And so they said, oh, we're going to get a grant, and we're going to have our beautiful map of the downtown. So now our train station has a map. I've gotten business off of that. And then just kind of these little things, and then that kind of gave me momentum. And then this project, starting the YouTube, I'm always talking about the tips and tricks, and you know, the short girl hacks, and the here you can let this hem out if you're too tall for this pair of pants, and just here's how to properly tuck a shirt. And so and my customers were constantly requesting me to do videos of these tips that I'm sharing them, so they could go back and see. And so I would do them, and then I would post them on our social media, our Instagram and Facebook. And then it was requested that I do a YouTube channel, so it was just easier for them to find, instead of going through all of the Instagram posts and then the Women in Business interviews. I'm so fortunate that I am in a downtown of so many small businesses, and we always feed off of each other. We're always sending each other clients, and the customers see that, and they comment on that. They'll say, oh, you know, the Threaded Cork or Dime Store Diva or the Vintage Rich, they sent me over here, and they're like, y'all just aren't competitive with each other. And I'm like, no, we will go further together than we will ever go on our own, and we all know it. And it's felt that way. And so and we have a business meeting once a month where we get together and we talk about our calendars and what we're doing for the community, and how we can support each other. And so then I was like, you know what? Let me add to the YouTube. And I started asking some of these women that inspire me and that I go to, and we brainstorm together all the time. Like, what if we shared some of this knowledge? You know, what if we did an interview? Would you be willing to sit down with me? And every single one of them enthusiastically said yes. And so it kind of gave me like, okay, back to the football. It was the opportunity. And so I was like, okay, let's take the opportunity. Let's start the channel. Let's start these interviews. Let's get people inspired.
Rachel, what keeps you passionate about this, even on the hard days?
It's never really been about the clothes. It's about how a woman feels when she puts something on and for the first time really sees herself differently. It's about confidence. It's about understanding the body shape, and it's about learning to show up in a way that's authentic to themselves and where they're at this point in life. And that is why I built this. And that is why I keep showing up every day, even when it's hard. It's to get that one person that comes in and I can show them how to build confidence from themselves, within themselves, and create their own personal style that meets them where they're at today.